All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. Today is Tuesday, October 15th of 2024. And looking ahead here, we have a single game MLB showdown between the Guardians and the Yankees. And then we have a 9-game NHL slate on this Tuesday. So it should be a fun day of DFS. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. This is a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS-related questions. Get your questions in one of three ways here. First off, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Second, post it live in the YouTube chat. Third way, post it in the office hours channel in our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord and want to get access to that channel, there is a link in the description of this video. You also get access to our similar channels, individual sport channels, and you get access to the rest of the SaberSim team. Just can't say enough good things about the Discord. But with that said, we do this show Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, and we do this show on Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. So tune in any one of those days and get your questions answered. And as a reminder, we have our build review show going live at 5 p.m. Eastern. If you ever want to get signed up, drop your DK username in the office hours channel in our Discord. Let me know what sport and slate you want reviewed, and I will add you to the list for the next show. With that said, let's get SaberSim up and let's get some questions here in the queue. And let's get rocking and rolling. So it looks like our first question came in from Ty yesterday. Two questions from Ty. And then one from Bulldog. So we'll hit these first and then get caught up with any live questions that are rolling in. So first question, I enter my entries prior to optimizing, but I don't always want a separate lineup for every entry. How do I change that? Okay, so if you're saying you enter your entries, I'm gonna read that as like you reserve your entries, which you should do. Now the second part, I don't always want a separate lineup for every entry. How do I do that? So good question. So let's go over to the MLB showdown for tonight. We'll run 200 lineups here, a couple quick adjustments. Click build. So basically, you're just gonna have to change your fill method here. So there's a couple ways to do this. Let's let these lineups run. All right. So let's say I had a 20 max in here, right? Or you know what? Rather, let's say I had 5 single entries. So if I had 5 single entries, I would have a contest tab and it would say parentheses 5. And what's going to happen is the builder is going to default the my lineups to 5. It's going to say, hey, there's 5 entries. Let's put 5 lineups. Now, if you do not want that, what you can do a couple things. Maybe you want one lineup in all 5. Go to the 3 dots next to save, open up this menu, and then go and change unique rank just to rank. And then when you do that, it's going to change the my lineups from 5 to 1, basically saying that you have a unique, instead of having a unique lineup for every entry, we're just going to put one lineup in all 5 slots. Now, there is a new feature that I don't have here. So let me show you guys what that looks like real quick. I'm going to go back to a recent slate that I have entries for. So I have entries for this Monday through Thursday slate. So if I come here and I'm in direct fill and I click this arrow to show my list of contests, if I scroll down to the bottom, there's this automatically update number of lineups button. This is going to update based on the contests here, right? So if I don't want this to update, if you know, I have 6 single entries and I only want 3 unique lineups and I want to put each lineup into a single entry twice. So like I use 3 lineups, each one gets used twice. Just come in here and turn off this automatically update number of lineups button. And then that will help you to get to your desired number of lineups and make sure that the My Lineups button basically never changes. So if you do that, you should be all set. So one of those 2 options are going to be the best choice for you. All right. Next question. Let me get Saberson back up. Question says, dumb question of the day. There are no dumb questions here. All right. I often hear the term take a stand in reference to players. What does that mean? So basically, let's say that, you come in here and you look at the players' ownership projections, right? And I'll just open up a new build. So we come in here, let's say we sort by ownership. If you played every single player and matched their ownership, you would be basically neutral to the field. That, when this person is the best captain, you have as many shares of that player as another user on average, right? So take a stand refers to not being neutral on a player and basically being in favor of the player or in opposition of the player. So for instance, Garrett Cole, 40% projected captain. Now, if I had Garrett Cole in 80% of my lineups, that would be twice as much as other users have on average, right? That would be taking a stand on him. I am planting my flag and I am saying I think Garrett Cole is going to be the best captain. So I want to play more of him than the field is going to. Now that is a stand in favor. You could take a stand against a player too, or like, you know what? I think the Guardians are going to get to Garrett Cole today, and I want to play less of him than the field does. So maybe they're playing 40% Garrett Cole captain. Maybe I'm only going to play 10%. So even though I have 10%, when he does bad, that actually hurts the field more than it hurts me. So I'm effectively rooting against him at this point. So think of ownership as like the player's break even point, and then when your exposure is higher than the ownership, you're in favor. When your exposure is below, you're against. This is what the leverage column represents, right? So if we go into this build where I ran lineups, let's say I come in here and I'm looking at 20 lineups. So I can sort by exposure. Leverage is going to tell me if I'm in favor or against a player, right? So because Will Brennan is 6% owned here, and I have him in 15%, that's 9% leverage. I'm rooting for Brennan. And then similarly, inversely here, I would be rooting against Aaron Judge because we have the highest negative leverage against him. So that's what this is describing. All right, next question. And I see Ty Fetty's here, so glad you're able to catch that. All right, after an initial build plus contest sim for tonight's 3-game college football slate, I have a few lineups in my top 10 SimROI that have very high ownership. Interestingly, SaberSim says that the expected dupes is 0 for these lineups. I'm worried that their ROI is contingent on them not being duped. And given that their ownership total, there's actually a high likelihood they are duped. If I set a filter to remove lineups greater than 350 ownership, that would remove approximately 10% of my lineups, which sounds reasonable. Would you still recommend filtering via ownership, even though it'll remove some top SimROI lineups, or should I probably keep those and look to diversify elsewhere via min uniques, etc.? Thanks. This is a really good question, right? Very, very intuitive question. I didn't even know there was a 3-game college football slate tonight, or else I would have mentioned it at the beginning of the show. 3 games on Tuesday. Pretty cool, to be honest, if you're a football guy, right? Just one more day with football. So really good question, right? Now, what I would say is you're right that the ROI is contingent on the lineup not being duped. Every single time the lineup is duped, the ROI effectively comes down. This is something that Matt's talked about, where you see lineups that are unique and you see their ROI. It's effectively the lineup's ceiling ROI. The ROI cannot get higher. It can only go down. Now, if you have a lineup that's duped, it says it's supposed to be duped 2 times, right? And the ROI is a number. Well, what if it comes in 1? Well, now the ROI is higher. What if it comes in unique? Now the ROI is higher, right? So those lineups are a little bit more resilient to being duplicated because they're already being duplicated. So you're definitely on the right track. Now, me personally, what I would do is I would probably filter it out, and I would be okay with losing that lineup, but I wouldn't just do that and never think about it again. I would come back tomorrow and I would say, okay, how did my lineups do? Or what you could do, right? Even probably a better example is run one build where you filter it out, run a different build where you don't filter it out, enter those into two separate 20 maxes and see how they do, right? And then see which idea worked out better, right? So if we come into like the contest tab today, you could go and enter the dime time and the quarter, put one into each and see what happens, right? I honestly think that's like one of the best ways to figure this out. But me personally, we were doing some college football main slate reviews recently, and I was surprised how much duplication there was even on like a 12 game, 14 game college football main slate. I would agree that lineup duplication is going to be very important on 3-game slates like tonight. So I would be trying to account for that. And if you're losing some high SimROI lineups in the process, I think that's okay. I mean, the way I build my showdown lineups is I take a pool of 5,000 and I get it all the way down to 500 lineups. I'm basically getting rid of like 90% of the lineups and trying to figure out, what lineups from the 500 remaining I want to play. And I don't even think twice about removing high SimROI lineups if their geo means high, if their projections low, if their sum ownership's high, like all those things that I was talking about yesterday. I don't even think about it, right? So as long as I'm grading out well in the post-contest sim, that's really all I care about, because the post-contest sim is always going to be better than the pre-contest sim as far as, just trusting the results and like that is ultimately like what you should be grading yourself on, not like how high your pre-contest sim was. So hope that helps. But really good question. All right. Taking a peek here. No other questions in Discord at the moment. See Ty here. Crypto Grady says, Sims have been killing me. Anytime, I talked to a couple people today, kind of had like a similar sentiment. And I was like, anytime you guys are having trouble, the best thing you could do, in my opinion, is sign up for the Build Review Show. I can usually get to like 5 people a day. Some days we get to less because less people sign up. All you got to do, drop your DK username in the Office Hours channel. Let me know what sport and site you want me to study. And even if you're playing on FanDuel, it's okay. I could look at your build and I could see things that you're doing and try and give you some ideas. If you're playing on DK, great. We have contest flashback. I can dive in there and give you some ideas there. So if you feel like, you're not winning, you don't know if you're running bad or playing bad and you need some help, that's what that show is for. So very easy to get signed up, and I'd be happy to review you on stream. All right. With that said, why don't we build some lineups for college football for tonight? So if I was playing college football, which if you guys know me, I normally don't do, right? So not super in tune, but I would be trusting the tools here. So 20, making 2 small adjustments to projections, leaving salary wide for a small slate like this. There's not really any filters or rules like defaults, right? There's a super flex in college football, so no defense or anything like that. And I would just kick this off, right? So normally I would build the max, whatever max lineups you can build on your plan. Always do that. I'm going to just build 500 for the sake of time here. So let's build some lineups. Lineups are finishing. So normally at this point, what I would do is I would run a contest sim. I didn't set one up. We could do this with Saber Score as well. Totally cool. So we'll just use Saber Score for this example. People always ask me like, hey, your videos like have the sims, what about like if I'm using Saber Score? Well, the easiest thing to understand is like The contest sim just gives you additional sorting metrics, right? But you just need to use whatever the best sorting metrics are on your available plan, whether that's Saber score, whether that is ROI. Either way, you're just setting that up here in this drop down. Now, from here, right, what I would do is I'm going to do all the same things that we normally do, right? Checking my aggregate metrics, adjusting my uniques, watching my leverages, and making sure that I'm settling on a number of lineups that I'm on adjustments that I'm comfortable with. One thing with Saber score that you do want to do is that you don't have such a clear measuring stick as, ROI greater than 0. So try and stay in the top 25 to 50% of your pool just to be safe. So then I would start increasing my min uniques, noting my average projection at 126.8, drops to 126.2, gets us down to lineup 43. Probably get to a lower number of uniques on a 3-game slate. Like even 3 uniques, we've already lost 1.5 points of projection. You could stay at 3. I prefer to go back to 2. We are a little bit more concentrated with some of the players here. Like we have 2 wide receivers at 100%. Their ownership is high, 67 and 70% owned respectively. So it's up to you whether you want to use like 2 or 3 in this instance. 2 makes sense to me. Sometimes 3 will make sense to other people. You got to make sure you're comfortable with the exposures and leverages that you're seeing. But somewhere in this range would be good. 3 is fine still because you're at lineup 125, which is still, the top 25% of your pool, and it would be okay. So from here, right? I mean, I'm basically ready, and I would submit these lineups, but then the next day, what I would do is I would come in here and I would build on this, right? And I would go and I would study my lineups, and I would see like, hey, how am I grading out? What did I not do? What did some of the best players do? And then I would start to basically build a process from there and iterate on it and try and improve it. So this is going to give you a great starting point, and then you just slowly start incrementally getting better from there. All right. Jay said, can you kind of break down how would you navigate the NHL slate? I just signed up a couple weeks ago. I've had some success, but need a little help with kind of how you would approach a big slate like today. So I'm not a big hockey guy, just so you guys know. I would go about it the same exact way I'm doing this. Very, very hands off, very, very trusting of the tools, and then go back and review it. But if you guys are looking for some help on hockey, what I would do is I would go over to our YouTube channel, and we have I'm looking for it. I don't know if we have a playlist. We definitely have a video here. You can also find this in Saber School. This video is less than a week old. How to build winning NHL DFS lineups with SaberSim. This is going to be better than anything I could tell you here on stream. You can also access this inside of SaberSim. You go to Saber School. You go to how to be. Okay, I actually don't see an NHL tab here. So possible it just hasn't got uploaded yet. So thanks for calling that out. I will bring this up. NHL Saber School. But check out that video on YouTube. This is going to be your best guide. Another question here. Can you explain the unique number? Yeah, absolutely. So let's get back to the build that we were using. So this uniques, what this does is, well, first off, when it's at 1, what this means is that we're not going to build you the same lineup twice. So although the same group of players can be the best lineup more than once, we're never going to put the same lineup into your pool twice. So the uniques one guarantees that, we have 500 lineups. All 500 lineups have at least one player that is different from every other lineup in your set. Now, as you increase this, what you are doing is you are telling the builder, hey, I want you to show me 20 lineups that have at least 2 players different. And then every time you do that, the builder needs to skip lineups to meet that request. So, we need 20 lineups. We should be looking at lineups 1 through 20. But then when we increase uniques to 2, the builder has to go down to lineup 43 to meet our request. So it basically starts skipping lineups, right? So I can come in here, and then all the lineups that are grayed out are ones that it's skipped. So lineup 5 got skipped now. Lineup 7 got skipped. Lineup 8 got skipped because we put this additional requirement in. So this helps with diversification. It's a diversification tool to make sure that your lineups aren't, clumped together, very, very concentrated on a particular combination of players. Because one of the best things that you can have in DFS is a neutrally correlated set of lineups where the outcome of one lineup has minimal impact on the outcome of another lineup. You could see this in your DFS contest. If you're playing lineups that are well diversified, you're actually going to be spread out through the standings. But if your lineups are very correlated, they're going to be clumped together wherever they are in the standings. So being spread out is always going to be better. All right. Samuel said, "Hi, Andrew. Yesterday's video for NFL Showdown showing the target ROIs projected. Will it make a difference to make rules instead of filters? And can you use both pre and post build?" So filters work pre and post build, right? You could have filters pre-build, and then you could have lineup filters post-build. Rules only work pre-build, so you would want to set those up before the build. But as far as any ROI or contest sim type of stuff, that always has to be done after the fact, because you have to build the lineups, put the lineups into the contest sim, and then go from there. So let me know if I'm following you there. And then follow up from the prior questions. So 10 to 15% of trashing the player pool, is that the combination of all the filters active, more or less? So I usually do this. So what we're talking about is filters that we use to curate our lineup pool, right? That is not to curate the player pool, just to be clear, right? The player pool is the players available to be put into lineups. And then the pool of lineups is what we're filtering after the fact. So I'll talk about filtering out the bottom 10% of projected lineups, the highest 10% of geo mean lineups to prevent duplication, right? Those are per filter is how I use it. I'm trying to get rid of the bottom 10% per filter. And I do it one by one because sometimes those lineups overlap, right? I might do 500 lineups from projection, 500 lineups from geo mean. And then when I turn both on at the same time, sometimes there's only 700 lineups in the trash. So it's okay, 200 or 300 overlapped between the two. So that's the effect that I'm having. So I do it individual, and then I add them all together at the end. And however many lineups end up in the trash, not a big deal to me. All right. So you would ideally want to have your unique greater than 1 in order to diversify, from my understanding, correct? Generally, yes. It does get hard to have it higher on small slates, single game showdowns, captain showdowns. MMA can be tough, right? Sports where you need an optimal, NASCAR, all these 6-player lineups, just because there's less players in a lineup, less opportunities for diversification. You also want to keep an eye on your aggregate metrics, right? This is what I was doing. So we started at 1. I noted our average projection. You basically don't want to sacrifice too much projection or ROI to get diversification. You want to try and balance all three. So here I don't have a contest sim run, but if I did, I would have an aggregate metric that also showed the ROI. And I'm trying to adjust the uniques while keeping an eye on my aggregate metrics like projection, like ROI, like exposures, like leverage. It does get a lot to balance, but that's what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to strike a balance. You're trying to account for diversification, but also not give up too much in terms of lineup strength, right? So it's always a little bit of a juggling act. Next question. What time do NHL Vegas totals populate? I checked at midnight. It was blank. Last year, totals populated at midnight. Good question. So just to be clear, these are not Vegas totals, right? These are the totals that come from our play-by-play sims. So if you come in here and you check these against Vegas, chances are you're going to see some differences, right? You might see a half goal totals in either direction. Sometimes when a game is like a coin flip. Maybe we're leaning, one way as opposed to Vegas leaning a different way, right? So just to be clear on that, the Sims have been running. You can always check the NHL lineup alerts channel in Discord. That will tell you when the Sims run and complete. From what I've been seeing so far, the projections have been going up somewhere between 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern. But the lineup alert channel will give you that information. So I saw it I think on Monday, yesterday, and it was 10:30 a.m. Eastern. So somewhere in that 10 to 11 window. Samuel says, is it possible to add lineups to favorites from different tabs? Yeah, absolutely. That's what the favorites is for, right? You could have multiple builds, and then you could send lineups to the favorites from each. If you're doing different rules, if you're doing different game scripts, whatever you're doing, and then combine them all into a single contest. Red said, is it the same filtering rules for both FanDuel and DK? Yeah, I would be doing the same. I do the same on my classic slates, right? So FanDuel main, DK main, doing the same stuff. I'm doing it on Owner's Box, doing it on Yahoo, doing it across the board. Jay said, thank you for sure. Let's take a peek again at Discord. So it looks like we're all caught up here in both the YouTube chat and the Discord. So appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll be back here in about 30 minutes for our build review show. So until then, everybody, take care. Good luck. Thanks. Bye.